quick demo of this lesson. In this video, we are going to implement complete Angular 7 master detail CRUD operations with ASP.NET Web API using a restaurant app. Here we have the final output of the tutorial. Inside this restaurant app, let's make a new order. Here we have the order number. Now let's select a customer. In order to select food items for this order, you can click on this add button here. Then from this drop down, you can select the food, then change the quantity here, then submit. So here we have added corresponding food under this details table here. Like this, you can add as much as food for this order. In total, this order costs around $17. So select the payment method here. Now let's make this order by clicking on this submit button here. So here we have successfully created this order for Olivia Kathleen. Now let's check how to update this order. For that, you can click on this row here. Corresponding order items will be populated inside this form here. And then let's make the required changes. If you want to delete or add food items, you can do that here. After making required changes, you can submit the form. So here we have updated corresponding order. If you want to delete an order, you can click on this trash icon here. Then confirm this operation by clicking on this OK button here. So here we have deleted corresponding order. In this video and the next video, we will implement this sample Angular 7 project from scratch. While developing this big application, we will cover following points. How to design Angular 7 master detail form with pop-up dialog. How to do insert, update and delete operation with Angular 7 and Web API. How to retrieve and display master detail in Angular with ASP.NET Web API. How to design the DB for master detail with foreign keys and much more. So I strongly recommend this whole tutorial. Before starting this video, I would like to ask you a favor. If you found this video helpful, please thumbs up this video. If you are new here, please be subscribed to this channel and click on the bell icon to get notification about my new videos. Most of the video lesson here also has a written blog post. You can find the link in video description. You can grab code from there as well. What's up YouTube? Welcome to CodAffection. In this video, I am going to implement Angular 7 master detail CRUD operations insert, update and delete with ASP.NET Web API. In previous Angular 7 and Web API combination, we have implemented simple CRUD operations with employee details. It would be better if you watch that video first. I have given the link in video description. As a next step, here we are going to implement advanced master detail CRUD operations. Before getting started with this topic, I would like to thank for your PayPal donations. I really appreciate your support. In exchange, I hope I can make helpful tutorials like this. For those who would like to support this channel and my tutorials, I have given a PayPal donation link in both first comment and video description. Without further ado, let's get started. Here is my Visual Studio 2017. In order to create a Web API project, go to File, then New, then Project. Select Web under Visual C#, then select ASP.NET Web Application. Then name your application here. I will name it as Web API. Then select the location where you want to save this application. Then click on OK. Select Web API template. Keep other options as it is. Click on OK. So here we have the brand new ASP.NET Web API project. Before continuing with this project, I would like to set up the database. For that, here is my SQL Server Management Studio. First of all, let's create a database. Inside this application, we are going to deal with order in a restaurant. So I will name this database as Restaurant DB. Click on OK. Newly created database can be seen inside this databases node here. So here we have the database Restaurant DB. Inside this Restaurant DB, first of all, I will create a table for customer. Normally inside this table, we will store the complete details about the customer. For now, we just need the customer name. So first of all, we have the ID column, customer ID. It's of the type integer. Then we have name column for customer name. It's of the type varchar 50. I want to set this ID column as the primary key. I want to set the same column as an identity specification. So select the column, then go to column properties, expand identity specification here. Set is identity as yes. As you know, columns with identity specification, we don't want to insert values into the column. SQL Server will take care of that. It will start from 1 and incremented by 1 upon new record insertion. In order to save a table in Management Studio, you can use the shortcut Ctrl S, or you can click on this save icon here. I will name this table as customer. Newly created table can be seen under this tables node here. If you can't see that, just refresh this node here. Now we need a table to store food items inside the restaurant. So let's create the table. First of all, we have the ID column, item ID. It's of the type integer. And we have the name of the item. It's of the type varchar 50. And we have the final column, price. It's of the type decimal 18.2. So we will have 2 decimal point. I want to set this ID column as the primary key, and for the same column I will set this identity specification. Now let's save the table. I will name this table as item. Click on OK. Now let's create the master table, which is order. For a given order, there will be a single record inside this table. So first of all, we will start with ID column, order ID. It's of the type big int. Then we have order number. It's of the type varchar 50. Then we have customer ID. It's of the type integer. Then we have payment method. In short, I will name it as P method. It's of the type varchar 50. And finally, we have the grand total. It's of the type decimal 18.2. First of all, we have order number. The logic behind order number generation can be different from different customer. It might be a combination of branch code and a sequence number, or whatever it may be. We will store that inside this order number. And we have the customer ID column in order to refer a customer from this customer table. Now I want to make this ID column as a primary key for this table. I will set the same column as an identity specification for the table. Expand identity specification, set is identity as yes. In order to save this table, click on the save icon here. I will name this table as order. Then refresh this tables node here. Finally, we have to create one more table, which is details table. Inside this master table, we only have the basic information about the order. Inside this details table, we will have the details of food items ordered. So first of all, we have the ID column, order item ID. It's of the type big int. And then we have a column which is to refer the master table record, order ID. It's of the type big int. And then we have the column item ID. It's of the type integer. Finally, we have the column for quantity. It's of the type integer. So inside this order ID column, we will have the master record ID from this order table. And then we have the ID of the item selected for the order. And we have the quantity of the order. I will set this ID column as the primary key. I want to make the same column as an identity specification for the table. Now let's save this table. I will name this table as order items. So while we make a new order, we will save the master detail inside this order table, and we will save this master ID, order ID, inside this order ID column here inside this details table. So for a given order, we will have one or more rows inside this details table order items based on the number of items you have ordered. Now let's define foreign keys among these tables here. So first of all, I want to add a foreign key inside this master table order. For that, right click on keys here, then click on new foreign key, then click on these three dots here for tables and column specification. For this foreign key, we have the customer table as the primary key table, and from that table we have the ID column customer ID, and from this order table we have customer ID. So whenever we insert a new record inside this master table order, corresponding customer ID should be there inside this customer table. Click on OK, close. In order to save this foreign key, click on the save icon here, click on OK. And inside this details table we have to add two more foreign keys. So right click on keys and new foreign key. First of all, we have to add foreign key with item table. From this master table item, we have the column item ID, and here we have to select item ID. Click on OK. We need one more foreign key, click on add, and I will set order table as the primary key table. From there we have order ID column, and here we have order ID column. Click on OK. Close this window. In order to save new foreign keys, click on save, click on yes. Now I want to insert few records inside this customer and food items table item. For that, I have already prepared insert script. So right click on this DB here, then click on new query, then I will paste the script here, click on execute. So here we have inserted few records into customer table. Now we have to insert few food items inside this item table here. So right click on this database, new query, I will paste the script here, click on execute. Now if you execute select statement from both of these tables, you can see newly inserted records. So here we have the existing customers, and here we have the available food items from the restaurant. Now in order to work with this SQL Server DB, we have to add entity model into this Web API project. So right click on models folder here, add new item, select data from the left panel, then select ADO.NET entity data model. I will name this as DB models. Click on add, select entity framework designer from database, click on next, click on new connection. Inside this connection property window, we have to provide the SQL Server and database details. In my case, local /SQL Express. From this drop down, we have to select the database restaurant DB. Click on OK. After creating this entity model, there will be a class with this name. In order to interact with the database, we will create an object of this class in entity framework. For now, I will change this name as DB model. Click on next. If you have more than one version of entity framework, you have to select one of them. I will select the latest one, then click on next. In this step, we have to select database objects that we need to add inside the entity model. We have to select all of these 4 tables. Click on finish. So here we have successfully created the entity model. Here we have the diagrammatic representation of the 4 tables. Inside this entity model, dbModels.edmx, we have these classes customer, item, order, and order items. All of these classes are corresponding to each table that we have created inside SQL Server DB. So we can use these classes as a model to create corresponding controllers. So first of all, I'm going to create a controller for customer. For that, first of all, we have to rebuild this project. Now let's create the customer controller. Right click on controllers, add controller, select Web API to controller with actions using entity framework. Click on add. For model class, I will select the customer class. As a data context class, we have DB model that we have mentioned during creation of entity model. I will name this controller as customer controller. Click on add. So here we have the customer controller. As a result of entity framework scaffolding mechanism, we have all the web API method related to customer table. We have get web API method, and we have put employee method, post method, and delete web method also. For customer table, we are not going to implement CRUD operations. We are going to implement CRUD operations around order table. So for this customer table, we only need this web method get customers. It returns all the customers from the customer table. We have already inserted few customers inside customer table. So let me get rid of the remaining web methods from here. So here we have only one web method which returns all the customers from customer table. Here we have the dispose method, which is used to dispose resources that we have used inside this controller. In this controller, we have created an object of data context class that we have to dispose inside this dispose method here. Like this, let's create a controller for food items or items table. So right click on controllers, add controller, select the same scaffolding mechanism, click on add. For model class, I will select the item class from here. Data context class will be same, and I will name this controller as item controller. Click on add. In this case also, we just need this web method get items, which returns all the food items from item table. So let me get rid of the remaining web methods from here. Now let's create the order controller. Select the same scaffolding mechanism. For model class, I will select order class. Data context class will be same, and I will name this controller as order controller. Click on add. So here we have created the order controller. Inside that, we have all the required web API method in order to implement CRUD operations. At the various stages of this application development, we will explain and modify these web methods here. For now, we can start with creating Angular 7 project. I'm going to create the Angular project inside this project folder where we have already created the web API project. In order to create an Angular project, you have to run Angular CLI command from your command prompt. So first of all, we have to open command prompt from this folder directory. So hold shift, then right click, then click on open command window here. Now you can run this Angular CLI command ng new. I will name this application as Angular 7. Hit enter. Would you like to add Angular routing? Type Y for yes. Which style sheet format would you like to use? I will stick with CSS. As a result of this command execution, here we have the folder Angular 7. Currently it is installing some default packages from npm. It will take some time, so please be patient. After a few minutes later, I have created the Angular project inside this Angular 7 folder. In order to work with this Angular project, I would like to use Visual Studio Code editor. You can use the same Visual Studio itself. So right click here, then open with code. For this Angular 7 project, I will use Bootstrap. So go to official website getbootstrap.com. Then click on this get started button here. We have to add the reference for style sheet and JavaScript files inside the project. So first of all, we have the CSS. Let me copy this. Then back to the project. Open index.html. Then I will paste the CSS reference just above the head and tag. After that, we have this much JavaScript reference. Let me copy this, then back to the index.html. We have to paste that just about this body and tag here. Along with this Bootstrap, I want to use font awesome icons. So let me search for font awesome CDN reference. Let me copy this. Then back to the application, just below this Bootstrap style sheet, I want to add one more link, and I will paste the CSS reference here. Before continuing with this application development further, let me show you the structure of the application that we want to build. For that, I will add a new file here. I will name it as appstructure.txt. Inside that, I will paste the structure. So inside this application, here we have the parent component orders. Inside this component, we will list all of the orders that we have made. And here we have the child components order and order items. With this component, we will design the form for master order. And here we have the second child component order items. Inside that, we will have a form for adding food items into an order. We will show this form in a pop-up dialog. And here we have the shared folder. Inside that, we have both model and service class for entities inside this project. First of all, we have model and service class for customer, and here we have item model and item service, and here we have the model and service class for master entity order. For detailed table order item, we have only model. All of the CRUD operations related to this detailed entity order, we will do that inside this order service class here. Now let's create these components, service and model class inside this project. For that, we can use Angular CLI command from terminal. I will use the integrated terminal from this IDE. Here we are inside the project folder Angular 7. In order to create a new component, you can use this command ng g for generate c for component. First of all, we have to create this component orders. Let me copy this and pasting here. Now if we execute this command, we will have the style sheet, we will have the HTML, we will have a file with extension spec.ts which is for test purpose, and here we have the component TypeScript file. We don't need these two files, file with extension spec.ts and this style sheet file. In order to skip these two files, we can do this. First of all, in order to skip this spec.ts file, we can use this flag spec and we will set it as false. In order to skip this separate style sheet here, we can use the inline CSS flag. We just need to add this flag here, inline style. In short, you can use single hyphen, then yes, hit enter. So here we have the newly created component orders. Inside that we have two files, one for HTML, one for TypeScript file. We have skipped this spec.ts file, and for component specific CSS rules, you can use this inline styles array styles here. Like this, let's create remaining child components order and order items. For that, we can use the previous command with few modifications. We have to create the child component inside this orders folder. So orders /order. Hit enter. We have one more component, order hyphen items. Hit enter. Newly created child components can be seen inside this orders folder here, order component and order items component. Like this, let's create remaining service and model classes. First of all, let me clear this terminal here. First of all, I will create the service classes inside this shared folder. In order to create a service class, you can use this command ng g for generate, s for service. First of all, I will create the customer service class. So customer, we have to create this service class inside the shared folder. So shared /customer. This service generation command also create a test file with extension spec.ts. In order to skip that, we can do this spec is equal to false. So here we have the newly created service class inside this shared folder. Like this, we have to create two more service class. So I will use the previous command with few modifications. Instead of customer, we have item service. Hit enter. After that, we need a service class for order. So instead of item, we have order. Hit enter. Now inside the shared folder, we have to create 4 model class for customer, item, order item, and order. Unfortunately, there is no specific command in Angular CLI to create a model class, even though we can do that with few tweaks. First of all, let me clear this terminal. In order to create this model class, we can do this ng g for generate. We have to create a class. In short, we can use cl here, and here we have to create this class inside the shared folder. So shared / first of all, I will create the customer model class. So here we have customer. This command here will create a file with class customer, but the name of the file would be like this, customer.ts. But as per the best practice or recommendations, we have to add this suffix .model.ts. For that, we have to add this flag here, type is equal to model. Hit enter. Newly created model class can be seen inside this shared folder here, customer model.ts. Inside that we have the customer class. Like this, we have to create remaining model classes. So I will use the previous command with few modifications. Instead of customer, we have item model. After that, we have order item. Finally, we have order model. So here we have done with creating components, service, and model classes. Now we have to update these model classes with required properties. It should contain all the properties from this Web API models here. Other than these Web API model properties, we may have to add extra properties when it comes to client side. We will do that in various stages of the application. So first of all, let me update this customer model here. For that, I will copy these properties from this Web API model customer. Let me copy this and pasting here. Obviously, there are differences in C# and TypeScript syntax. So we have to modify these properties type declaration here. It's of the type number. After that, we have name. It's of the type string. Let me get rid of this public in and public string from here. Like this, we have to update remaining model classes. So here we have done with creating model classes inside the application. Now we can start designing this application. Before that, I would like to configure routing for this application. While creating this application, we have requested Angular CLI to include routing module inside this application. So you can see the app routing module here. So in order to configure routing inside this application, we can add those routes inside this routes array here. So here we have the first route, path is equal to orders. So with this route, we will display all the orders from our database. So here we have the component, and we will use the parent component orders. Orders component, you can type the component name here. While typing the component class name, here we have the autocomplete. If you click on that, it will add the corresponding import statement at the top. Like this, we have to create few more routes. Path is equal to order. This route will have children routes, so we can add this children array here. And here we have the first children route. Path will be empty and component will be order component. From this route, we will return a form to insert new orders into the application. After that, we have one more children route. Path will be something like this. Edit, And for this route, we have a route parameter. So we can specify that here /:id. We will use the same component, order component, for both of these child routes here. Based on the value of id, we will decide whether we have an insert or update operation. So in order to use this route, we have to make a request like this / we have the parent path here, order. And in order to access this route here, we just need to do this /order, then /edit / an ID of the order. It will be something like 5 or 6. So based on the value of ID, we will return a form for updating corresponding order. So here we have defined all the routes required for this application. Finally, I have to add a default route for this application. So path will be empty string. Using this default route, we have to redirect to this route here, order. And we have to set this path match as full. For now, let me comment this default route here and let me save all of these modifications here. Now let me run this application. For that, you can use this command ng then serve :o. Hit enter. So this is how the default application looks like. Angular application created by Angular CLI will have this default component, app component, and here we have the corresponding HTML, app component.html. These codes here is responsible for this default view here. In order to start designing this application, I will start from this default component itself. Let me get rid of this default HTML here. Here we need a div with class Jumbotron, which is from Bootstrap. Along with that, we need one more class, Jumbotron Fluid, which is also from Bootstrap, Jumbotron Fluid. Inside the div, first of all, we will have an h3 element with class display4. In order to align the text in center, we will add this class text-sender. All of these classes are from Bootstrap. Inside this header, I want to name this application as restaurant app. Below this header, we will have a div with class container from Bootstrap. Inside that, we have another div with class row so that we can use the grid system from Bootstrap. Here we have the div with class call md10, and we need an offset of 1 from both sides. So we have offset md-1. Inside this div, we can add this tag router outlet. So based on the route, this router outlet tag will be replaced by the corresponding component HTML. For example, if we are trying to access this route here, orders, this router outlet tag will be replaced by the HTML of this component, orders component. Let me uncomment this default route here. Let me save all of these modifications. Then back to the application here. So here we are inside the order route. By default, this application will redirect to order route that we have defined here. With the default route, we will be redirected to order route. That means this child route will be invoked, and hence this router outlet tag will be replaced by the HTML from this order component. So here we have the default HTML from order component. Now along with this restaurant app title, I want to show an image. So here is the image, food.png. I will drag this and place this image inside this assets folder. Inside that, we have to create one more folder. I will name that as img, and I want to move this file into this img folder here. Now back to the component HTML here. app component HTML. Inside this h3 element, I will add this img control, and I will set this source /assets /img /food.png. We don't need this alt attribute here. Let me save this and back to the application. So here it is. Now inside this route or inside this component, order component, we have to design order form. So let's look how to design the order form inside the component. We can design the form inside this order component here. Before that, we have to discuss how we are going to communicate between different components inside this application. For that, here we have the app structure. If you want to communicate between these components here, we will add those such properties inside this order service class here, and we will inject this service class instance inside this app module.ts file here, and thereby we can share same single instance of this service class among these three components here. In order to design the form inside this order component, we need a property of the type order model that we can define inside this order service class here, and we will inject this service class inside the app module.ts file. So here we have the property form data. It's of the type order class. If you click on this, corresponding import statement will be added at the top. Now we have to inject this order service inside this app module.ts file here. For that, we just need to add this order service class inside this providers array here. So here we have injected the order service class inside this app module.ts file. In order to add the corresponding import statement, while typing this class, we will have the auto prediction, or otherwise we can hold control then press period or dot symbol, and it will fix the import statement. Click on this import statement here. So here we have added the import statement. In order to use the same instance of this service class inside this order component here, we just need to define a private property inside this component constructor. So private service, it's of the type order service class. Now open corresponding HTML file here. First of all, we need a form. We don't need this action attribute here. Instead, I will add a local reference form. It's equal to ng form, and we have to set this autocomplete as off so that we can prevent autocomplete inside input controls inside this form. We are going to design this form based on this form data property inside this order service. We have an instance of this injected order service inside this order component because of this property here, service. So we only want to display this form whenever this property is initialized. So I'm going to use this ng if here. We will show this div only when this property form data is not empty or undefined. So we can do this service.form data. I'm going to divide this form into two halves using Bootstrap grid system. So we have the div with class row. Inside that we have the first column div with class called md6. Like this, we need one more div, so let me copy this and pasting below that. First of all, we have the div with class form group. Inside that we have label. We don't need this for attribute. Let me get rid of that. First of all, we have the order number, so order number, and after that we have an input control with class form control from Bootstrap. We don't need this type attribute. By default, input controls will have the type text, so let me remove that. Now we have to use two-way data binding from this form data property. Okay, first of all, we have to set this name attribute, and I will set it as order number. After that, we have the local reference. So order number is equal to ng model. After that, we have the two-way data binding, ng model. Here we are going to bind this property form data. Inside that we have the order number. This is what we want to bind into this input control here. So this is what we do. Service.form data. Inside this form data we have this order number. So let me copy this and pasting here, form data dot order number. Like this div, we have to add 3 more divs for remaining properties. So let me copy this and pasting below that. Rest of the divs can be added inside this second grid column here. Second div here is for customer. So for customer we have to show a drop down. So instead of this input control we need a select control. For this select control we have to add an end tag here, select. Now we have to update these properties accordingly. We have to bind this control into this customer ID property here. So let me copy this and replacing order number with customer ID. Inside this select control we have to list customers from our customer table inside the SQL Server DB. That we can do in a bit. For now I will add the default option here. Value will be 0. Inside that we have the text select. After that, inside the second column as a first control we will have the payment method. So I'm going to replace this order number with payment method. For this field also we need a select drop down. So let me copy this and pasting here. And instead of this customer ID we have to bind to this property here, p method. So let me copy this and replacing this customer ID here. And inside this final div I want to show the grand total. So here it is, grand total. And for this input control we have to bind this gTotal property. So let me copy this and replacing order number here. Finally, in order to submit this form, I'm going to add a submit button outside this grid system here. So we have div with class form-group. Inside that we have the button with type submit with classes btn and btn dark from Bootstrap. Button text will be submit. Along with this text, I want to show font awesome icon. So here we have the I tag with class far, then far-database. Here we have designed this form using template driven approach. So we have to add corresponding module inside this app module.ts file here. First of all, we have to add the corresponding import statement here. Import from Angular forms. We have to import forms module. Now let's add the class inside this imports array here. As you can see here we have defined this form using this form data property from this service class. Here we have defined the object form data. We have to initialize these inner properties here. That we can do inside this order component here. For that, I will define a separate function here, reset form, with a single parameter form. It's of the type ng-form. Click on this so that it will add the corresponding import statement at the top. Now inside this function, first of all, we just need to call this reset form function, and we will reset this property here. This dot service dot form data is equal to, here we have an object. First of all, we have the order ID. I will set it as null. After that, we have order number Order number, I will set it as empty string. After that, we have customer ID. Customer ID, I will set it as 0. Payment method, P method, I will set it as empty string. Since payment method is of the type string, we have to set it as empty string. So we have to change the default value for this select control here. We have set it as 0. Now I will change that as empty string. Now back to the function reset form. After payment method, we have gtotal. I will set it as 0. For this order number, you will have a logic to generate this number. Like I told you before, it might be a combination of branch code, company code, including date or a sequence number, whatever it may be. For now, I'm going to use random 6-digit number for this order number property here. In order to generate the random 6-digit number, this is what we can do. First of all, we have the smallest 6-digit number, which is 100,000. Into that, we can do this math dot random function can be called, and we have to multiply this with 900,000. So this random function will randomly pick a number between the range 0 to 1, but not 1. Operation here will return a random 6-digit number. In order to get the integer part, we can do this math dot floor function can be called, and in order to convert this into a string, we can call this toString function here. For now, this is what we need inside this reset form function. Now we have to call this function inside the ng-on lifecycle hook here, reset form function. While we invoke this function from ng-on lifecycle hook, we don't have a value for this form parameter. So I want to make this as nullable, and I will add this if clause here. We only want to call this reset form function when we have a value for the form parameter. Now let me save all of these modifications here. So here it is. By default, here we are inside the order route. Here we have shown the order form. Now I want to make few more modifications for these form controls here. So go to Bootstrap documentation here, and then switch to forms documentation, and let's have a look how to add prepend to input controls. So this is what I meant by prepend. We have to add prepend to these input controls here, order number and grand total. So back to the component HTML here, order component HTML. First of all, we will have a div with class input hyphen group. Inside that, we need one more div. So let me copy this div from here and pasting inside that. Instead of this class input hyphen group, we need class input group prepend. Inside that, we need one more div. So div with class input hyphen group hyphen text. Inside that, we will add this pound symbol. Now we have to move this input control into this input group div here. So this is how we can add prepend to an input control using Bootstrap. Let me save this. Let's have a look here. So here we have added this prefix pound symbol. Now we have to do the same for this grand total. So let me copy this div with class input group and pasting here for grand total. And I want to replace this input control with grand total. Instead of this pound symbol, we will have dollar symbol. Let me save this, then back to the application. So here it is. Both of these input controls should be read only. So we have to add this attribute here, read only. Same for this order number also. We will populate this control dynamically using SQL Server Table Customer that we can do in a bit. Before that, I want to add few more methods into this payment method. So back to the HTML here. Here we have the payment method. I will add two more options here. Cash, value will be cash and text will be cash. And this one for card. Save, back to the application. Now I want to make few more modifications in order to change overall appearance of this application. For that, I'm going to use the global style sheet styles.css here. First of all, I want to remove the padding for this div with class Jumbotron. So we can add this CSS rule here. After that, I want to change the border of form controls to somewhat blue. So this is what we do. Finally, we have this table row CSS rule in order to show cursor when we hover on table rows. We will use this CSS rule when we list orders that we have saved. Let me save these modifications here. Back to the application. Boom. Here we have done with designing master part of this form. Now we have to include details part also. Means inside the same form we have to have an option to add or select food items for the order. For that, inside this order service class here, I'm going to add a new property. It will be order items. Order items. It will be of the type order items model array. So here we have the array. Inside this order items array, we will manage food items selected for the order. So using this array property here, we will show a table here. So back to the component HTML here, order component HTML. So here we are going to add a table for order items, order items table. So here we have the table with classes table, and we have one more class table hyphen borderless. All of these classes are from Bootstrap. Inside this table we have thead with class thead hyphen light. It will add a background color to this table header. Inside the first column we have item. Like this we have to add 3 more columns. So let me copy this and pasting below that 3 times. First of all we have price, and then we have quantity, and finally we have total. After all, I want to add a th for actions like edit and update. Body part of this table. In order to display selected food items, we have to iterate through this array order items. So this is what we do. Here we have the tr element, and here we are going to use ng for detective. ng for let item of service dot order items. First of all, we have to show the item name here. So item dot item name. Like this, we have to display 3 more properties. So let me copy this and pasting below that price. And then we have quantity. Like this, we need 1 more column. So let me copy this and pasting below that. Instead of quantity, we have total. And inside this last column here, we will show action buttons edit and delete in a bit. As you can see here, this property order items is an array of this type order item. Inside this class, we have few limited properties which is copied from the Web API model. In addition to these properties, we have to add few more properties, like we have item name, price. This is what we can do. We have to add item name here. It's of the type string, and then we have price, quantity is here, and we need total also. So price, it's of the type number, and then we have total, it's of the type number. Now back to the order items table here. Initially inside this order items array, we will not have any elements. So in that case, we have to show a row saying no item selected for this order. So here we have the row. Inside that we have this td element with classes font-italic, and we have one more class text sender. Inside that we have to show this no food item selected for this order. We only want to show this tr element when there is no item inside this array here, order items. So this is what we can do. We will add the ngIf directive here. ngIf. Inside that we have this condition service dot order items dot length. If length is equal to 0, means there is no item inside this array. Now inside the reset form function here, I have to set the array into an empty array. So this dot service dot order items, and here we have the empty array. Let me save all of these modifications here. Then back to the application. So here we have the table to list food items selected for the order. I want to make few more modifications here. Instead of this display title, I want to show food, and we want to set call span for this td element here. So back to the HTML, instead of this item title, I want to show food. And for this td element, I want to set call span. Here we have in total we have 5 columns, so I will set it as 5, save, then back to the application. Now we have to implement the option to add or select food items into this order, and thereby we can show the selected food items under this table here. For that, I'm going to add a button inside this last th element of this table. So back to component HTML here. So here we have the anchor element with classes from Bootstrap, btn, then btn hyphen sm, then we have btn hyphen success, and then we have to show text inside this button as white. So we have this class text hyphen white. Now let's wire up a click event for this button. So here we have the click event. We will call this function add or edit order item. Now let's define this function. So here we have the function add or edit order item, and here we have the function definition. Inside this function, we are going to open this component order items component HTML in a pop-up dialog, where we have to design a form to insert or update existing food items selected for the order. In order to do that, for this function we need 2 parameters. First parameter will be order item index, and then we have order ID. Now from this component HTML, we have to pass values for these parameters. So here we have the function add or edit order item as part of this button click event. So for this first parameter order item index, I'm going to set value as null. So we will pass null from here. After that, we have to pass order ID value that we can retrieve from this parameter here. So let me copy this and pasting here form data dot order ID. Here we have called this function in order to insert or add food item into this order. We will call this same function to update a selected food item for the order. For that, we can add an edit icon inside this last cell here. So let me copy this same anchor element from here, and I will paste that inside this last td cell here. Instead of this btn success, we need btn info clause, and inside this anchor element, we don't need this text, and I want to change this phone over some icon. Instead of plus icon, we need an icon with pencil. So I will use this class far-pencil. Now we have to change the parameter for this function here. Here we have to pass the index of this item inside this array here. In order to get index of item on each iteration, we can do this. Let I is equal to index. Now we can use this I variable inside this event here. Now back to the function here. So inside this function parameter, we have the data that we need to pass from this order component into this order items component, which is needed for the further operations on food items for the order. When we click on this button here, we have to open this component order item in a pop-up dialog. For that, I'm going to use Angular Material pop-up dialog. We have already discussed Angular Material in great detail with an example project from scratch. I have given the series link in video description. If you have not seen those videos, please watch them where we have discussed how to use Angular Material pop-up in great detail. For now, let's look how to open this order items component when we click on this button here. So first of all, let's look how to install Angular Material into this Angular 7 project here. So you can go to this website material.angular.io, then click on get started. We have to install these packages here: Angular Material, Angular CDK, and Angular Animations. In latest versions of Angular, this Angular Animations package will be there by default. Even though I will just copy this whole command and then back to the application here, open one more terminal, then paste the npm command here, hit enter. So here we have done with installation of these three packages. Now we have to configure this Angular Material. So back to the documentation here, we have to add this browser animations module inside app module.ts file. So first of all, let me copy this import statement, then open app.module.ts file. Let me paste the import statement here. We have to add this browser animations module inside this imports array here. Along with that, we have to select a theme from Angular Material. So I will use this theme here, Indigo Pink. So we have to add this CSS style sheet reference inside the global style sheet. So let me copy this import statement from here, then open styles.css, then I will paste this reference at the top. That's it. So here we have configured Angular Material into this project. Now let's look how to work with pop-up dialog in Angular Material. For that, you can go to these components here, then click on this pop-ups and models, then click on dialog. So in order to work with this dialog here, we have to add corresponding module that we have shown here, mat dialog module. So we have to copy this import statement, then open app.module.ts file. Let me add that import statement here, and we have to add this class inside this imports array here. Now back to order component here. Inside this function, we have to open this component order items from this function. For that, first of all, we have to inject this mat dialog class here. So we have to add this constructor parameter private dialog. It's of the type mat dialog. You can click on this class here. Corresponding import statement will be added at the top. Now inside this function here, we just need to do this dot dialog dot open function can be called. As a first parameter to the function, we have to pass this component order items, which is to be opened inside the dialog. So here we have to pass the component order items component. Now in order to open this component in a pop-up dialog, we have to mention this component as entry components inside app module.ts file here. So here we have to add the array entry components. Now back to the component function here. Along with this first parameter, we can pass one more object in order to configure the pop-up dialog. For that, we can use mat dialog config class from Angular material. So let me import that class here. Mat dialog config. Now here I'm going to make a constant of this mat dialog class. So dialog config is equal to new mat dialog config. So dialog.config, first of all I will set autofocus as true so that when this pop-up dialog opens, the first component inside the dialog will get the focus. After that, we have to set disable close so that it will prevent the dialog from closing when we click outside the dialog. After that, we have to set the width of this dialog, so we can use this width property here, and I will set it as 50%. Finally, we have to pass these two datas, order item index and order ID, into this component using this pop-up dialog. So we can do this. Dialog config property dot data property can be set with a new object here. Inside that, we have to pass these datas here, order item index and order ID. Let me copy this and pasting here. Now as a second parameter to this function, we can pass this dialog config object. Let me save all of these modifications here. Then back to the application, click on this button. So here we have opened order items component inside this pop-up dialog, and here we have the default text from the component. Now inside this order items component, we have to design a form to do insert and update operation for the food items inside this order here. So let's look how we can do that. So back to the order items component. So first of all, I want to add import statement for required classes from Angular material. So here we have the import statement, and we have to import few classes from Angular material. Angular / material, we have to import these two classes, mat underscore dialog, which is required to receive these two datas that we have sent while calling this open function here. Okay. After that, we have this class mat dialog ref. Mat dialog ref. This mat dialog ref class object is required to do further operations on this pop-up dialog here. Sorry, this mat dialog data is not a class, it is a constant. In order to use this constant, we have to do this at inject decorator. Inside that, we have this mat dialog data. In order to use this inject, we have to add this import statement at the top. And here we have the constructor property public data. After that, we have to create an object of this mat dialog ref, public dialog ref, which is of this type mat dialog ref for the component order items component. So here we have done with adding constructor parameters. Now inside this component, we have to design a form to add or select food items into the order. For that, I will add this property here, form data. It's of the type order item model. Inside that, we have these much properties. Now using this property form data, we have to design the form inside this component HTML here. First of all, we need a heading h4 with class display4 from Bootstrap. Inside that, I will show this heading order food item. After that, we need a horizontal line separation. So here we have HR element. After that, we have the form. We don't need this action attribute here. Instead, I will add this local reference form, which is equal to ng form, and we have to set autocomplete as off. First of all, we need a div with class form-group. Inside that, first of all, I want to show the food item drop down. So I will add this label. Inside that, we will have to show this text food item. For this field, we have to show a drop down using select element like we have done inside this order for customer. So let me copy this select element from here and pasting here, and we have to make required changes here. First of all, we have to change this name. It will be item ID, and we have to update this local reference also, and we have to update this two-way data binding. We don't need this service property here. We have directly defined this form data inside this component here. For this select dropdown also, we have to fetch records from our SQL Server table items by consuming Web API project. That we can do in a bit. Before that, let me complete this form design. After these food items drop down, we have to show fields for price. That means based on the selected item from this food items drop down, we have to show the corresponding item value inside the text box. So it will be similar to this grand total here. So I will copy the corresponding HTML from this component here. So here we have the corresponding div. Let me copy this and pasting here. And we have to make the required changes here. Instead of grand total, we have price. And we have to change these attributes also. Input control name will be price, and we have to change this local reference. Food item price is also predetermined, so we have to keep this read-only attribute here. After that, we have to show an input control for quantity. So let me copy this div from here and pasting below that, and we have to update correspondingly. We don't need this prepend $, so I will remove this. And we have to make changes accordingly. Quantity, let's update these properties here. User must be able to enter quantity of the food, so we have to remove this read-only attribute from here. Now I want to show these two divs for price and quantity in a single row, so we can enclose these two divs inside another div with class form-row. We can enclose these two form group divs inside this form row div here. And each of these divs will take half of the row. So we can add this class here called -md-6. We have to add the same class for this second div also. Finally, we have to show form controls for total. Inside the total text box, we will show the result of the multiplication between price and quantity. Corresponding fields appearance will be similar to this price here. So I will copy this div from here and I will paste that here, and let's make the required changes. Instead of price, we have total. This field value is calculated, so I will keep this attribute read-only here. Finally, we have to add a submit button. So here we have the div with class form-group. Inside that, we have to add submit button like we have added inside this order component here. So let me copy this button from here and paste that here. It will be exactly similar to that one. Along with this button, we need one more button to close the pop-up dialog. So I will copy this and pasting below that. This button type will be button. And I want to change this button class here, btn-outline-dark. Since we have two buttons side by side, I want to add a small left margin to this second button here. So we can add this Bootstrap class here, ml-1. Also, I will use a different phone awesome icon. I want to change this button text also. Instead of submit, we have close. So here we have designed a form for food items using this property form data. Now we have to initialize this form data property inside this ng on it lifecycle hook here. So this is what we can do, this dot form data, and we are going to set a new object here. It should be of the type this class order items. So first of all, here we have the details ID order item ID. Since we are going to make a new food item, so I will set it as null. After that, we have the master ID order ID. Value of master ID is passed from this component here using this data property, and we can retrieve that using this constructor property here data. So this is what we can do, this dot data dot. Inside this data property, we will have a property with this name order ID. Inside that, we have passed the master ID value so that we can set here. After that, we have item ID. I will set it as 0. And then we have item name. I will set it as empty string. And then we have price 0. Then we have quantity. I will set it as 0, and finally we have total. Now let me save all of these modifications here, then back to the application here, then click on this add button here, boom. So here we have the form to add or select food items into this order here. Now it's time to fetch food items and display them inside this drop down here. We have already populated few food items inside this item table here. In order to retrieve these records, we can consume this item control web API method get items here. For that, let me run this application. So right click on this web API project, then view, click on this view in browser. So here we are running web API project from this port number. Now we are going to consume this web API method get items from this item control. Where we have a problem, this web API project will block application which is hosted in a different domain or different port number. Like in this case, we have hosted this Angular application in a different port number. So this web API project will block requests from this Angular application here. We will call this situation cross origin resource sharing. In short, we can say CORS. So we have to enable CORS inside this web API project here. For that, select web API, then go to tools, then NuGet package manager, then package manager console. In order to enable CORS inside this web API project, we have to install NuGet package CORS. So we can use this command here, install package Microsoft.AspNet.WebApi.Cors. Using this command, we can install this package CORS. I have given this command in video description. You can copy paste from there. Now let's execute this command. So here we have done with installation of the package. In order to check whether we have installed this package successfully, you can rebuild this project and then reload this web API project. If you can see the home page like before, means installation of the package is successful. For some of you, you can see errors due to version compactability in WebApi.Core package. In those cases, we can execute these two commands. I have given these two commands in video description. After that, everything should work as expected. Okay, now back to the web API project here. Now let's enable CORS inside this web API project. For that, we can open this folder app start. Inside that, we have web API config.cs file. Here, we just need to do this config.enable CORS. Inside that, we have to pass an object of enable CORS attribute class. So this is what we can do. New enable CORS attribute. In order to use this class, we have to use this import statement here, system.web.http CORS. Inside this function, as a first parameter, we have to pass the URL of this Angular application here. So let me copy this, and now let's paste that here. Make sure to remove the / at the end of this URL. After that, we have to set this headers, and I will set it as star. After that, we have methods. I will also set it as star. So with these parameters, headers and method, we allowed all the combinations of headers and methods like get, post and delete, etc. So here we have enabled CORS inside this WebAPI project for this Angular application here. Now we can consume WebAPI methods from this Angular application here. Inside this WebAPI project, I want to make one more change. I want to disable proxy class creation in Entity Framework. It is used for change tracking and lazy loading in Entity Framework. I have seen few errors because of this feature. We don't need this feature to develop this application, so I will disable this feature. In order to disable this feature, we can open the DB context class here, dbModels.context.cs. Inside this class constructor, we can do this base.configuration.proxy creation enabled, and I will set it as false here. In order to apply new changes inside the running WebAPI instance, we have to build this project again. Now let's consume this WebAPI method get items from this Angular application here. First of all, I want to add this WebAPI base address inside this application. For that, we can go to this environments folder. Inside that, we have this TypeScript file environment.ts. Inside that, we have this constant environment. Here, I will add one more property, API URL. And I want to paste this WebAPI URI. Let me copy this and pasting here. Into that, we have to append this API also, because all of the WebAPI method has this prefix API. So we can add that here, / sorry, instead of equal symbol, we have to use colon. In order to consume this WebAPI method get items, I'm going to use this service class here, items.service.ts. In order to make an HTTP request, we will use HTTP client class. For that, first of all, we want to make a constructor property private HTTP, which is of the type HTTP client class. In order to add corresponding import statement, hold Ctrl, then press period or dot symbol. We have to import HTTP client from Angular common HTTP. In order to use this HTTP client class here, we have to add corresponding module inside app.module.ts file here. We have copied the HTTP import statement. I will paste that here. Instead of HTTP client, we have to use HTTP client module. We have to add this class inside this imports array here. Then back to the item service class. In order to retrieve food items, I will define a new function here, get item list. And here we have to do this dot http dot get function can be called, because here we have to consume this WebAPI method of the type get. As a first parameter to this function, we have to pass corresponding URI. First of all, we have to add the base URL of the WebAPI project that we have stored inside the environments constant inside the API URL property. So environment, you can select the appropriate import statement from here, dot API URL. Into that, we have to add this / item. This get function will return an observable, and I will convert that into a promise. So we can call this toPromise function, and we will return this promise from this function here. Now we can call this function inside this order items component here. First of all, we have to inject item service class here. So first of all, I will add the corresponding constructor property here, private item service. It's of the type item service class. Now inside the ng on a lifecycle hook, we can call this item service function get item list. So this dot item service dot get item list function can be called. It returns an observable, so we can call this then function here. So here we have the callback function with single parameter response. Inside this parameter we will have a JSON array containing this much food items. We have to store that inside a property here. So I will define this new property here, item list. It's of the type item model array. And inside this arrow function we can do this dot item list is equal to response. Finally, we have to cast this response as an item array. So we can do this as, let me copy this and pasting here. Now using this array item list, we can populate this drop down food items here. For that, we just need to add one option element here. Inside that, we will iterate through the item list. For that, I will use the ng4 directive. ng4 is equal to let item of item list. Now we have to set value for this option, and we can do that using string interpolation. Inside this value attribute, we have to show the item ID. So we can do this item dot item ID. And for the option text, we have to use this property name. So let me copy this string interpolation and pasting here. Instead of item ID, we have name. Let me save all of these modifications here and back to the application here. Click on this add button here. Then expand this drop down. So here we have retrieved and populated food items from this table, items from SQL Server table. Now we have to do few more things here. When we select an item from this drop down, we have to fill the corresponding food item price inside this input control here. So let's look how to do that. For that, we can use the change event of this drop down. So back to the component HTML, inside this select drop down here, I want to add a new event change. When this event is triggered, we will call this function update price. Into this function, we have to pass a reference for this select drop down. For that, we can do this. We have this dollar symbol, then event dot target can be passed. Now let's define this update price function inside this TypeScript file here with a single parameter control. Inside this parameter, we have the reference for this select element here. First of all, we will check whether the index is 0 or not. So control dot selected index. If selected index is 0, we can handle that inside this if clause here. This dot form data dot price is equal to 0. When we select the first item, means we have selected this default option. In that case, we have to set price as 0, and here we have the else part. Inside that, we can do this dot form data dot price. Here we have to set selected food item price from this array here, item list. So we can do this dot item list. Inside that, we have to pass the corresponding index. So let me copy this selected index. Inside this select drop down, we have an extra option for this default, which is the first element inside this select drop down here. So selected food item index from this array will be less than that of the index from the drop down. So here we have the item, from that we have to return price. Here we have an error. Let me check the item model. Inside that we forgot to add price property. We have already have that property inside this web API model. So let me add that property here. Price, it's of the type number. Now let me save all of these modifications. Then back to the application here. Click on this add button here. Select a food item. Corresponding food price is populated inside this text box here. Along with this price update, I want to update the corresponding item name inside this form data property item name here. So let me copy this and pasting below that. Instead of price, we have item name, and I will set it as empty string. Let me do the same inside this else part also. Instead of price, here we have name. For this item name property, we have not yet added a form control inside this form element here. We have to add that, then only we can access those property values when we submit the form. So I will store them inside an input hidden field. Input, which is of the type hidden. Like the other controls, we have to add these properties: local reference, name, and data binding. Let me copy this and pasting here. Let me update these properties accordingly. Item name, along with this item name hidden field, we have to add hidden fields for these ID properties also. We have to retrieve these properties when we submit the form. For that, let me copy this hidden field and pasting that here 2 times. Instead of item name, first of all we have order item ID, and then we have order ID. Save all of these new modifications. Back to the application. Let me open the dialog. When we change a food item here, we will update the price here. Likewise, when we update this quantity here, we have to change the total here also. It should be as the result of this multiplication between price and quantity. We can do that inside this text box key up event. So back to the component HTML. Here we have the quantity text box. Let's add the key up event. Key up, and we will call this function update total. Now let's define this function inside the TypeScript file here. This dot form data dot total is equal to this dot form data dot quantity into this dot form dot price. This multiplication result will be a float number. I want to limit the decimal to 2 numbers, so we can do this. Into this, we will call this toFixit function, and we want to limit the decimal into 2 digits. So this function will return a string. We want to convert that into float. So we can call another function parseFloat. Let me save all of these modifications. Back to the application. Open the dialog. Select a food item. Corresponding price is updated here. Now let's update the quantity. At the same time, you can see the total based on the multiplication result. We have to call this update total function when we change this food item also. So let me call that inside this update price function which is called inside the change event of the dropdown. So let's call this function. This dot update total function can be called here. So thereby we have done with calculation inside this order food items form. Now I want to submit this form, thereby we can add the new food item inside this order table here. Before that, I want to implement the click event for this close button. When we click on this button, we have to close this pop-up dialog. For that, we just need to add an attribute into this close button here from Angular material. So here it is, mat hyphen dialog hyphen close. Let me save this, back to the application, open the dialog, click on this close button. So here we have closed the open dialog. Now let's check how to submit this form so that we can add a new food item into this main form table here. For that, here we are going to add a submit event for this form here, submit. When we submit this form, we will call another function on submit. Into that function, we have to pass this form local reference. Now let's define this on submit function inside the TypeScript file here. On submit with a single parameter form, it's of the type ng form. Now let's add the corresponding import statement for this ng form class. Hold Control, then press period or dot symbol, then select the appropriate import statement. In order to add a food item into this order here, we just need to push that element into the order service property that we have defined here. Order service, inside that we have this order items array. We just need to push the new form data into this array here. In order to add a new element into this array here, first of all, we have to create a private property inside this constructor of this order service class here. Private order service, it's of the type order service class. Now inside this function, we can do this dot order service dot order items dot push. Into this function, we have to pass an object containing new details of the selected food. So we can access that from this form object. So we just need to do this form dot value property can be accessed. Inside that we have values from these form controls. After adding these food details, we can close this pop-up window here. For that, we just need to do this dot. Here we have the reference for the opened pop-up dialog ref. So this dot dialog ref dot close function can be called. Let me save all of these modifications and back to the application here. Let's add a new food item. Click on submit. Newly selected food item is added into this details table here. Like this, we can add as much as food items we want. Okay. Inside this form submit event, we have to validate this form here. That means there should be at least one food item selected from this drop down and quantity of the food item should be greater than 0. So let's implement these validations. In order to work with validation, I'm going to add a new property here, is valid, it's of the type boolean, and I will initialize that with true. Now let's define a new function to validate these form controls. So let's define the function validate form with a single parameter form data. It's of the type order item. Inside the function, first of all, I will set the isValid property as true. And here we have the if clause. Inside that, we will check this form data dot. First of all, we will check whether item ID is 0 or not. If item ID is 0 means there is no food item selected. So we will reset this Boolean property to false. And here we have the else if block. Inside that we will check whether the quantity is 0 or not. So let me copy this and pasting here. Instead of item ID we have quantity. In that case also we will reset this Boolean property. Finally, from this function we have to return this Boolean value. Return this dot is valid. Now let's call this function inside this onSubmit function. We will do the insert operation only if the form is valid. So we can do this if this dot validate form function can be called. Into that we have to pass the object containing form field values. If this function returns true means form is valid, otherwise we won't do anything. Now inside this form we have to show validation error indications when form validation fails. First of all we have the food item drop down here. Into that I'm going to add a CSS class from Bootstrap. So this is what we can do. Class dot is invalid class can be applied. This is a class from Bootstrap. It will apply a red border around this select control. We have to apply this class based on this condition here. Is valid property is not true and the item ID value is 0. So here we have the property form data dot item ID. It is equal to 0 and this property is false. We have to apply the same class for the quantity text box. So let me copy this and here we have the control. Let's paste that here. Instead of this item ID we have quantity. Let me save all of these modifications here. Then back to the application. So here we have applied Bootstrap class is invalid to both of these quantity and select drop down for the item ID. Here we have misspelled item ID. Instead of small I we have capital I. Let me save all of these modifications here. Then back to the application. Let's try to submit this form with default values. So here we have the validation error indication around these two controls, select drop down for food item and quantity text box. Now let's try to submit this form with proper details. I will select a food item, then let's enter the quantity. Then click on submit. That's it. Now let's look how to update or edit selected food item details. For that, here we have already added this edit button. Here we have the edit button. Into that we have binded the same function add or edit order item, which we have called for this add button also. Into this function we have passed index of this item from this array order items, and here we have the master ID order ID. Now let's look what we have done inside this function here. Order item index and master order ID details into the pop-up window that we can access from this component order items component. Here we have the ng on a lifecycle hook. Here we have reset the form property form data with initial values. This reset operation is required if we are going to add a new food item into this table here. If we are going to edit or update existing food item details, we have to populate corresponding selected food item details into this form here. So we have to update this ng on a lifecycle hook here. So here we have the if clause. Inside that we can do this. This dot data property contains the data informations that we have sent from this order component. So this is what we can do. Data dot order item index property contains the index of the selected food item. That you can see here, for an existing item the value of the index will be 0 or greater than 0. In case of new record it will be null. So we have to do this. So we have to reset this form properties if the value of this index is null. Otherwise, we have to populate this form data property with corresponding selected food item details. For that, we can do this dot form data is equal to, here we have to assign corresponding element from this table which we have stored inside the order service property here, order service property order items. So we can do this. Here we have already injected the service class order service. Inside that we have the list order items, and here we have to provide this index. Let me copy this and paste in here. Here we have directly assigned the corresponding array element into this form data. Instead of that, I want to assign a copy of this element. Otherwise, when we open this form for edit operation, whatever changes made inside this form will be reflected at the same time inside this table. We don't need that, so I want to make a copy of this element, and then we can assign that into this form data here. For that, we can do this. Object dot assign function can be called. As a first parameter, we have an empty object. As a second parameter, we can pass this object here. Let me save all of these modifications and then back to the application here. Now let's add a food item into this order. Submit. Now let's try to open these food details for edit operations. Corresponding selected food item details are populated inside this form. Now after making required changes here, we have to submit this form and we have to update that corresponding element inside this table here. For that, we have to update this form submit event, which we have written inside this function here on submit. Here we have called this push function in order to insert a new record. For update operation, we have to do something else. So I want to add an if clause here. Inside that, we will add the same condition that we have done inside this ng-only lifecycle hook. If the order item index is null, we will do the insert operation. Otherwise, we will do the update operation. So here we have the else clause. Inside that, we can do this dot order service dot order items array. Inside that, we have the corresponding elements, and here we have to provide the corresponding selected food items index. So here it is. Let me copy that and pasting here. Into that, we have to set the current value of form controls from the form. So let me copy this. Form.value property contains the updated values. Let me save all of these modifications and back to the application. Let's try to add a new food item. Now let's try to edit the details. I will select a different food item and then let's change this quantity. Submit. So here we have updated corresponding food details inside this table also. Now let's try to delete a food item selected from this form. For that, we are going to add a new icon for delete operation inside this last table cell. For that, let's open corresponding component HTML, order component HTML, and here we have the details table. Inside the last cell, here we have the anchor element for edit operation. Let me copy that and pasting below that, and we can make the required changes for delete operation. Instead of this btn info class, we need btn danger class. Since we have two adjacent buttons, we have to add a left margin for the second button. So I will add this bootstrap class ml-1. And I want to change this for icon here. Instead of for pencil, we need for trash. Now let's change this click event wired up here. When we click on this button, we will call this function on delete order item. For this function, we will have two parameters. First of all, we have to pass the details ID, which means order item ID. So we can retrieve that like this, item dot order item ID. As a second parameter, we have to pass the index of this element. Now let's define this function inside the TypeScript file here. we have two parameters, order item ID, which is of the type number, and then we have index, which is also of the type number. In order to delete the corresponding row, we just need to do this. Inside this component, we have already injected, or we have the order service property service. So we can do this this dot service dot order items, and we can call this splice function for array. As a first parameter to this function, we have to pass the start index, and we have to specify how much element do we need to remove from this array. We only need to remove one element. So in effect, we will delete the element at this index here. Inside this function, we have not yet used this first parameter order item ID. We need this information. I will tell you why when we update this whole order here. Now let me save all of these modifications. Back to the application here. Let's add few food items. In order to delete this food item from this order, you can click on this trash icon here. So here we have deleted corresponding food item. For now, I will stop this video. Rest of the important entity framework master detail CRUD operations are covered in part 2. You can see the part 2 video link in first comment and video description. I have given the project GitHub link in part 2 video description. Thanks for watching this whole part 1 video. If you found this video helpful, please thumbs up this video, and for more awesome videos like this, please be subscribed to this channel CodAffection. Please like and share this video with your friends and colleagues so that they can benefit from this. Have a nice day. Bye.